The day the aliens came to Earth started like any other day. People went to work, children played, and life went on as usual. That changed when the giant ships appeared in the sky above every major city on the planet. They were huge, dark metal, vessels that blocked the sun and cast long shadows over the land below. The ships stayed silent for 6 hours. During this time, governments around the world tried to contact them. They sent radio signals, light signals, and even launched small drones with greeting messages. Nothing worked. The aliens stayed quiet, watching. Then, at exactly the same time all over the world, screens in homes, phones, and public places showed the same image: a tall, lizard-like creature with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Its yellow eyes had narrow black slits for pupils, and when it opened its mouth, 2 rows of sharp teeth gleamed in the light. "People of Earth," the creature said in perfect English, "I am Commander Zarthul of the Draxian Empire. Your planet is now under our control. You have 48 hours to surrender before we unleash the beasts of war. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your technology is nothing compared to ours. We have conquered 17 worlds before yours. You will be the 18th. The message played in every language tailored to each region. Then the screens went dark, and panic spread across the globe. World leaders met in an emergency online meeting. They argued about what to do. Some wanted to fight, others to surrender. In the end, they agreed to send a representative to talk to the aliens. They needed someone brave, smart, and good with words. They chose Captain Alan Wright. Alan was 35 years old with short brown hair and a face that looked friendly even when he was serious. He had fought in wars and helped with peace talks in troubled places. He was known for staying calm in scary situations, but he also had one unusual habit for a military man. He never went anywhere without his golden retriever puppy, Buddy. Buddy was only 4 months old, a ball of golden fur with big brown eyes and clumsy paws too big for his small body. Alan had found him abandoned near a military base 3 weeks ago and took him in. The puppy now followed Alan everywhere. When Alan got the call about the alien meeting, he was feeding Buddy in his small apartment. "Captain Wright," said the voice on the phone, "you've been chosen to represent Earth in talks with the aliens. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes, pack light. You'll be briefed on the way." Alan looked at Buddy, who was licking the last bits of food from his bowl. "What about my dog?" he asked. "Leave it with a neighbor," the voice said. "This is a matter of global security." Alan frowned. "I'll be ready in 30 minutes, he said, and hung up. He had no intention of leaving Buddy behind. The puppy had already lost one home. Alan wouldn't make him lose another. 30 minutes later, Alan stepped into a black car with a small bag and Buddy hidden inside his jacket. The puppy was small enough to fit, though Alan knew this wouldn't work for long. Puppies grow fast. On the way to the launch site, officials explained the plan. Alan would go up to the main alien ship in a small space shuttle. The aliens had agreed to the meeting and sent landing instructions. Alan would try to buy more time and learn what the aliens really wanted. "We need to know what these beasts of war are," said a woman with glasses and a tight bun. She was Dr. Susan Mills, an expert in alien theories. "And why they're here. Do they want our resources, our land, or is this something else?" Alan nodded, feeling Buddy shift inside his jacket. "I'll find out," he promised. The space shuttle was small and simple. It was meant for going to the space station, not for meeting aliens, but it was the best they had ready. Alan sat in the passenger seat while a pilot named Joe got them ready for takeoff. "Ever meet an alien before?" Joe asked with a nervous smile. "Can't say I have," Alan replied, "but I've met plenty of humans who seemed alien enough." Joe laughed, but the sound was tight with worry. "Good luck up there. We're all counting on you." The flight up was smooth. As they got closer to the alien ship, Alan saw how truly massive it was. The shuttle looked like a fly next to an elephant. A door opened in the side of the ship and a green light shone out. "That's my cue," Alan said. "Time to go make friends." The shuttle docked with the alien ship and Alan floated through the connecting tunnel. Buddy was still hidden in his jacket, now slightly unzipped to give the puppy air. Alan had managed to keep him quiet with a small treat, but he wasn't sure how long that would last. Inside the alien ship, the air was warm and smelled strange, like a mix of spices and metal. The gravity came back slowly, allowing Alan to land softly on his feet. 3 tall Draxians stood waiting for him. They wore what looked like armor made of black metal with red symbols carved into it. Their scaled skin reflected the lights overhead. "Follow," one said simply. Alan walked behind them through long hallways with curved walls. Everything was bigger than human size. Alan felt small, but he kept his back straight and his face calm. Buddy stayed quiet, maybe sensing the tension. Finally, they reached a large round room. In the center stood Commander Zarthul, even taller and more impressive than he had looked on the screens. Around him were at least 20 Draxian warriors, each holding weapons that glowed with blue energy. "So," Zarthul said, his voice deep and rumbling, "Earth sends one tiny human to beg for mercy. How disappointing." "I'm not here to beg," Alan said. "I'm here to understand. Why attack Earth? What do you want from us?" Zarthul laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Want? We take what we want. Your planet has resources. Your people will serve us. This is the way of the Draxian Empire. Surely we can work out a deal," Alan said, taking a step forward. "Trade instead of conquest." "Trade? With lesser beings?" Zarthul moved closer, towering over Alan. "Your kind has much to learn about the galaxy. It is ruled by the strong. The weak serve or die." As Zarthul leaned down, his face close to Alan's, Buddy chose that moment to wake up. The puppy squirmed inside Alan's jacket, pushing his head out into the open air. He gave a small, high-pitched bark. The effect was immediate and shocking. Zarthul jumped back as if he'd been burned. The Draxian warriors raised their weapons, but they too stepped away, their yellow eyes wide. "What is that creature?" Zarthul demanded, his voice higher than before. "What have you brought into my ship?" Alan, confused by their reaction, slowly took Buddy out of his jacket. The puppy wagged his tail and looked around with curious eyes. "This?" Alan asked. "This is just my dog. His name is Buddy." "Dog?" Zarthul repeated the word like it tasted strange. "Is it your weapon?" Alan almost laughed but caught himself. Something important was happening here. The mighty aliens were afraid of a puppy. "You said you would unleash the beast," Alan said carefully, holding Buddy up. "You mean this cute pup?" The room went very quiet. In that silence, Alan realized something that would change everything. These powerful aliens from the stars, with their advanced technology and conquering ways, were terrified of mammals, and Earth was full of them. Alan stood still, holding Buddy in his arms. The room remained quiet. He could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the sound of the Draxians breathing. Quick and shallow now. "Put that thing away," Commander Zarthul finally said. His voice tried to sound strong, but Alan could hear the fear in it. "Is this some kind of trick?" "No trick," Alan said, keeping his voice calm. "This is just a puppy, a baby dog. He's friendly." As if to prove Alan's point, Buddy wagged his tail harder and gave a happy little bark. 3 Draxian warriors moved back even further. "Impossible," one of them muttered. "The human controls a predator." Alan looked from Buddy to the aliens and back again. Something important was happening here. These powerful space travelers were afraid of his small, harmless pet. Alan decided to test his theory. "Would you like to pet him?" Alan asked, taking a step toward Zarthul. The commander hissed and raised his hand. "Stay back! Keep your beast restrained!" Alan stopped moving but smiled slightly. "He's not a beast. He's a friend. Humans and dogs have lived together for thousands of years. They help us hunt, protect our homes, and keep us company." "You live with these creatures?" another Draxian asked, sounding shocked. "We live with many animals," Alan explained. "Dogs, cats, birds, fish. Some people even keep reptiles as pets. This caused a stir among the Draxians. They looked at each other and spoke quickly in their own language. Alan couldn't understand the words, but he could tell they were upset. Zarthul seemed to make a decision. This meeting is over. Return to your planet. We will contact you again in 12 hours. Wait, Alan said. What about your demands? The surrender? 12 hours, Zarthul repeated, then turned and left the room. 2 Draxian guards came forward to escort Alan back to his shuttle. They kept their distance, their eyes never leaving Buddy. The puppy had fallen asleep in Alan's arms, tired from all the excitement. Back on the shuttle, Joe the pilot looked surprised to see Buddy. You had a dog with you the whole time? Is that allowed? It wasn't, Alan said, but I think it just saved Earth. As they flew back to Earth, Alan called his superiors on the secure line. He told them everything that had happened and what he had learned. They're afraid of mammals, he explained, especially dogs. Maybe cats too. Something about fur and warm blood scares them. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, said General Frank Peters over the video call. A space empire that can travel between stars is afraid of puppies? Believe it or not, it's true, Alan insisted. You should have seen them. These big, tough alien warriors jumped back like they'd seen a ghost when Buddy poked his head out. Dr. Susan Mills joined the call. It makes sense, actually, she said. If the Draxians evolved from reptile-like creatures, they might never have encountered mammals on their home planet. Their instincts might tell them to fear furry predators. So what do we do with this information? General Peters asked. Use it, Alan said simply. They're coming back in 12 hours. We need to be ready. When the shuttle landed, Alan was rushed to a meeting with world leaders and military chiefs. Buddy came too, now wearing a small vest with Earth Defense written on it. Alan's idea, people argued about what to do. Some wanted to attack the alien ships. Others thought they should try to make peace. Alan listened to everyone before he spoke. The Draxians are powerful, he said. Their technology is far beyond ours. But they have this one weakness. We should use it to talk, not to fight. What? Are you suggesting, Captain Wright? Asked the President of the United States. A show of force, Alan explained, but not with guns or bombs, with pets. His plan was simple. When the Draxians called again, they would show them that Earth was full of mammals. Dogs, cats, hamsters, rabbits, all kinds of furry animals that humans lived with and loved. We'll tell them the truth, Alan said. These animals are our friends, not weapons. But if the Draxians try to harm Earth, they'll have to deal with millions of beasts much bigger than Buddy. Some people laughed at the idea. Others thought it was crazy, but nobody had a better plan. 12 hours later, Zarthul appeared on screens around the world again. This time, Alan stood in front of the camera with Buddy sitting at his feet. Behind him were 20 people, each holding a different pet. Dogs of all sizes, cats, ferrets, even a small pig. Commander Zarthul, Alan said. Earth has considered your demands. We will not surrender. The alien commander's yellow eyes narrowed. Then you leave us no choice. We will unleash our beasts of war. Before you do, Alan said calmly, you should know something about Earth. We have our own beasts. He gestured to the animals behind him. These are just a few. There are billions more. Some are much bigger than these. Lions, tigers, bears, all mammals, all with fur, all living alongside humans. Zarthul's scaled skin seemed to pale. You lie. No intelligent species would live with predators. It's the truth, Alan said. And here's our offer. Leave Earth in peace and we keep our animals to ourselves. Attack us and we might decide to see how your warriors react to our furry friends up close. The threat was clear. Alan knew they couldn't really use pets as weapons, but the Draxians didn't know that. Their fear was real. There was a long silence. Alan could see Zarthul talking to someone off-screen. Finally, the commander faced the camera again. We will reconsider our position, he said stiffly. The Draxian Empire does not wish to waste resources on a planet of He paused, seeming to search for words. Unusual defenses. The screen went dark. Alan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Buddy sensed his relief and jumped up, putting his paws on Alan's leg. "Good boy," Alan said, petting the puppy's golden head. "You might have just saved the world." Everyone in the room started talking at once. Was this a victory? Would the aliens really leave? What if they came back with protection against animals? Alan didn't have all the answers. But he knew one thing. For sure, humanity had just found its place in the stars, not because they were the strongest or had the best technology, but because they had formed bonds with other species on their planet, bonds that the Draxians couldn't understand. As he picked up Buddy, Alan wondered what other surprises Earth's unique history might hold. The universe suddenly seemed much bigger and much stranger than before. And somehow, humanity had found an unexpected advantage in its furry friends. 3 days passed without any message from the Draxians. Their ship stayed in orbit around Earth, not moving or doing anything. People watched the sky and worried. Would the aliens attack? Had the plan with the animals worked? No one knew for sure. Alan spent these days in a special building with other important people. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials all wanted to talk to him. They asked many questions about the Draxians and what he had seen on their ship. Buddy stayed with him the whole time, now a small celebrity. People would smile when they saw the puppy, knowing he had scared the mighty aliens. On the morning of the 4th day, Dr. Susan Mills found Alan in the cafeteria. Buddy was eating from a bowl on the floor, his tail wagging. "We just got a message," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "The Draxians want to talk again, but this time they asked for you by name. And they said you should bring the, what did they call it? The small golden beast with you." Alan laughed. "They mean Buddy. Looks like he made quite an impression." 2 hours later, Alan was back on a shuttle heading to the Draxian mothership. This time, Buddy sat on his lap in the open, wearing his Earth defense vest. Joe the pilot kept looking back at them. "Still can't believe a puppy scared them," Joe said, shaking his head. "What do you think they want now?" "I guess we'll find out," Alan replied, scratching Buddy behind the ears. The shuttle docked with the alien ship just like before, but this time, when Alan stepped through the door, he found only one Draxian waiting for him. It wasn't Zarthul. This alien was smaller, with lighter-colored scales and no armor. "I am Kree, assistant to Ambassador Lisnar," the Draxian said with a small bow. "Please follow me, and keep your companion close." Alan nodded and picked up Buddy. The puppy looked around with curious eyes but stayed calm. Kree led them through different hallways than before. These were less military and more comfortable, with soft lights and what looked like art on the walls. Finally, they entered a room with a round table and chairs made to fit both Draxian and human bodies. Female Draxian was waiting there. She had smoother scales than the males and wore a robe with complex patterns woven into it. "Captain Alan Wright," she said. "I am Ambassador Lisnar. Thank you for coming." Her eyes flicked to Buddy, and she visibly stiffened but did not back away. "And thank you for bringing your pet." Alan sat in one of the chairs, keeping Buddy on his lap. "Thank you for inviting us, Ambassador. Where is Commander Zarthul?" "The commander has been reassigned," Lisnar said carefully. The Imperial Council felt a different approach was needed for Earth. Alan smiled slightly. "Because we have too many mammals?" Lisnar's mouth twitched in what might have been a Draxian smile. "You are direct. Good. Then I will be direct too. Yes, your planet presents a unique situation for us. In all our explorations, we have never encountered a world so filled with mammalian species, nor one where the dominant species lives alongside them. Is that why you've been conquering worlds? Looking for one without mammals?" The ambassador shook her head. "The Empire expands for many reasons: resources, territory, power. But yes, the absence of mammals is preferred." She placed a device on the table. It lit up and showed a hologram of a strange animal. It looked a bit like a mix between a cat and a monkey, with sharp teeth and bright eyes. On our homeworld, these creatures were our only predators, Listenar explained. They hunted from trees and struck without warning. They were small but deadly. Our ancient ancestors lived in fear of them for thousands of years before we developed tools to fight back. The hologram changed to show early Draxians being attacked by the creatures. By the time we developed space travel, these predators were extinct. But the fear remained in what you might call our DNA. When we see creatures with fur, especially ones with similar features, something deep inside us still reacts. Alan looked down at Buddy, who had fallen asleep on his lap. I'm sorry your people had such bad experiences with mammals, but Earth's animals aren't all dangerous. Many, like dogs, have been friends to humans for thousands of years. Listenar tilted her head. This concept of friendship with other species is strange to us, but fascinating. Our scientists would like to learn more. Which brings me to why I asked you here. She pressed another button and a new hologram appeared. It showed Earth with the Draxian ships moving away. The Imperial Council has decided not to proceed with the conquest of Earth, she said. Instead, we propose a different arrangement. We will recognize Earth as a protected planet. No Draxian ships will enter your solar system without permission. In exchange, we ask for two things. Alan waited, still petting Buddy's soft fur. First, we ask that humans do not bring mammals to Draxian worlds. This would cause problems. That seems reasonable, Alan said. And the second thing? We would like to establish a small research station on your moon. No weapons, just scientists. They would study Earth's life forms from a safe distance, and perhaps over time, learn to overcome our instinctive fears. Alan thought about this. A research station might seem harmless, but it could also be a first step toward something else. On the other hand, having Draxians learn about Earth's animals might help build understanding between their species. I'll have to bring this proposal back to Earth's leaders, he said finally. But I think we might be able to work something out. Listenar seemed pleased. There's one more thing, Captain Wright. The Council is curious about your buddy. How did you form this bond with him? Alan smiled. It's not complicated. I found him alone and hurt. I helped him, fed him, gave him a home. He gives me company and loyalty in return. Humans and dogs have been partners for thousands of years. The ambassador looked genuinely puzzled. And you are not afraid it will turn on you? Attack you? Never, Alan said firmly. That's not how friendship works. Listenar was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, could I, perhaps, touch it? Alan was surprised but nodded. Sure. He's friendly. Just move slowly and let him smell your hand first. The ambassador hesitated, then slowly extended her scaled hand toward Buddy. The puppy woke up, blinked sleepily, and sniffed at the strange new smell. Then, to everyone's surprise, he licked Listenar's finger. The ambassador jumped slightly but didn't pull away. It's warm, she said with wonder in her voice. That's what mammals are, Alan said. Warm-blooded. For a brief moment, Alan saw something change in the ambassador's eyes. A flicker of understanding, maybe even the beginning of something like respect. When Alan returned to Earth, he brought good news. The Draxians were leaving. There would be no war. Earth had just made its first alien ally, all because of a golden retriever puppy who hadn't even finished his training. That night, as he got ready for bed in his apartment, now filled with new security systems and government equipment, Alan looked at Buddy sleeping in his dog bed. You know, he said to the puppy, in all the stories about first contact with aliens, nobody ever thought our best weapon would be a good boy like you. Buddy opened one eye, thumped his tail twice, then went back to sleep, unaware that he had just helped write a new chapter in human history. Word about the aliens spread quickly across Earth. People everywhere watched videos of the Draxian ships slowly moving away from Earth toward the moon. News channels showed the same scenes over and over. The huge metal ships against the blue sky. now leaving instead of attacking. 1 month after first contact, as people called it, things were changing fast. The small research station on the moon was being built. A team of brave Draxian scientists had moved in, along with human helpers. They studied Earth from a distance, using powerful tools to watch the animals and people below. Alan had been promoted. He was now Major Wright, head of the new Human Draxian Relations Department. His office was in a tall building in Washington, with a view of the city. Buddy had grown bigger and had his own special bed next to Alan's desk. The puppy was now 6 months old and much more active. On a sunny Tuesday morning, Alan sat at his desk reading reports about the moon station. His phone rang. "Major Wright," he answered. "Alan, it's Susan." Dr. Mills sounded excited. "Ambassador Lisnar just called. She's requesting your presence on the moon station. Something about a special project. And she specifically asked for Buddy to come too." Alan looked at the golden dog sleeping under his desk. "Did she say what kind of project?" "No details, just that it's important. A shuttle will be ready tomorrow morning if you agree." Alan thought for a moment. He had been up to the moon station twice already, checking on progress and helping the humans and Draxians work together. But each time had been a short visit. "How long would we stay?" he asked. "A week, maybe 2, Susan replied. "They're calling it a cultural exchange." The next morning, Alan and Buddy boarded a shuttle headed for the moon. Buddy wore a special doggy spacesuit made just for him by NASA engineers. It was white with the Earth flag on one side and a picture of a dog paw on the other. Alan carried a bag with Buddy's food, toys, and his own clothes. The ride to the moon took only a few hours in the new fast shuttle. When they arrived, the moon base looked bigger than Alan remembered. New buildings had been added, some with clear domes where Earth plants were growing. Ambassador Lisnar was waiting when they stepped out of the shuttle. She wore a simpler robe than before, better for working. She still looked nervous around Buddy, but not as afraid as before. "Major Wright, thank you for coming," she said with a small bow. "And Buddy too. Please follow me." She led them through the base to a large room Alan hadn't seen before. Inside were 5 young Draxians. They looked smaller than the adults, with brighter colored scales and big, curious eyes. When Alan and Buddy entered, they all moved back against the wall. "These are children?" Alan asked, surprised. Lisnar nodded. "Young ones, yes. Part of our experiment." She turned to the young Draxians and spoke in their language. They listened, carefully, their eyes never leaving Buddy. The dog sat at Alan's feet, watching the strange new creatures with friendly interest. "What exactly is this experiment?" Alan asked when Lisnar finished speaking to the children. "We call it the Fear Reduction Project," she explained. "Our scientists believe the fear of mammals is not just in our minds but in our bodies too, a reaction we can't control. But they also think young Draxians might learn not to fear if they have good experiences with mammals early in life." Alan understood. Like exposure therapy, getting used to something scary in a safe way. "Exactly," Lisnar said. "These young ones volunteered to be the first test group. They will spend time with Buddy each day, slowly getting closer, maybe even touching him eventually. If it works, future generations of Draxians might not fear mammals." Alan finished for her. "That's brilliant." Over the next week, Alan watched as the young Draxians slowly grew braver around Buddy. The first day, they just stayed in the same room, watching from a distance. Buddy played with his toys, took naps, and acted like the friendly dog he was. On the third day, one young Draxian named Trill moved closer than the others. She sat 10 feet away from Buddy and watched him chew on a bone. When Buddy looked at her, she didn't run away. By the 5th day, Trill was brave enough to toss a ball for Buddy to fetch. The other young ones watched in amazement as the dog ran after the ball and brought it back, wagging his tail happily. "He listens to her," one of them whispered in broken English. "Like he understands." "He does understand, in his way," Alan explained. "Dogs are smart. They learn what makes people happy." "Even not people?" another young Draxian asked. Even us? I think so, Alan said with a smile. Buddy doesn't care if you have scales or skin. He just wants to be friends. On the last day of their visit, something amazing happened. Trill sat on the floor near Buddy. The dog was sleeping, curled up in a ball. Slowly, carefully, Trill reached out one scaled hand. Her fingers shook slightly. Then very gently she touched Buddy's golden fur. Buddy opened his eyes but didn't move. He looked at Trill, then closed his eyes again, completely relaxed. Trill's face showed surprise, then joy. She kept her hand on Buddy's side, feeling him breathe. So soft, she said in wonder. And warm. Soon, the other young Draxians joined her. They all took turns touching Buddy's fur. The dog seemed to understand how important this moment was and stayed calm and friendly. Ambassador Listenar watched from across the room, her eyes wide. In all our recorded history, she said quietly to Alan, no Draxian has willingly touched a mammal. Until now. When it was time to return to Earth, the young Draxians came to say goodbye. Trill gave Buddy a special toy she had made herself, a ball with bells inside that jingled when he played with it. Will you come back? She asked Alan. Yes, he promised, and maybe someday you can visit Earth and meet other dogs and animals. On the shuttle ride home, Alan looked at Buddy sleeping next to him. The dog had no idea how important he was, how he was changing the relationship between two species from different worlds. A message came through on Alan's tablet. It was from General Peters back on Earth. Major Wright, the President wants to meet your dog. And the Draxian Imperial Council has sent a formal request. They want to establish a permanent embassy on Earth. They're calling it the beginning of a new era. All because of one puppy. Get back here soon. History is happening. Alan smiled and scratched Buddy's ears. The dog opened one eye, thumped his tail, then went back to sleep. Dreaming dog dreams of running and playing, unaware that he was changing the future of two worlds. 5 years passed quickly. The day that the Draxians first appeared in Earth's sky now had a name. First Contact Day. People celebrated it each year by spending time with their pets and sharing stories about how animals had saved humanity from alien invasion. Alan stood at the window of his office looking out at the busy street below. He was now Colonel Wright, in charge of all human and Draxian relations. On his desk sat a framed photo of him and Buddy from 5 years ago, when the golden retriever was just a puppy. Next to it was a newer picture of Buddy as a full-grown dog, sitting proudly with a special medal around his neck, the Galactic Peace Award, given to him by both human and Draxian leaders. A large dog bed sat in the corner of the office. Buddy lay there, older now but still happy and healthy. His muzzle had some gray hairs, but his eyes were bright, and his tail still wagged whenever Alan looked his way. The door opened, and Dr. Susan Mills walked in. She had changed too. She now had the title of Chief Human Representative to the Galactic Council, a group of different alien species that the Draxians had introduced humans to after peace was made. Are you ready for the big day? She asked. The ship lands in 1 hour. Alan nodded and checked his uniform. Hard to believe it's really happening. The first group of Draxian tourists coming to Earth. Not just scientists or diplomats, but regular people. All thanks to you and Buddy, Susan said with a smile, and the Fear Reduction Project. It worked better than anyone hoped. The project had grown far beyond the first 5 young Draxians on the moon base. Now thousands of Draxian children spent time with carefully trained Earth animals as part of their education. They learned that mammals were not monsters to be feared, but different kinds of life to be understood and respected. Adult Draxians still felt the old fear, deep in their bodies. But many had learned to control it. Some, like Ambassador Listenar, even had small Earth pets of their own. She kept fish, which didn't trigger the fear response since they had no fur, but it was still a big step for her species. Is Trill coming with the tourist group? Alan asked as they walked toward the elevator. Susan checked her tablet. Yes, she's leading them. She's not so little anymore. 22 Earth years old now, and one of the youngest Draxian ship captains ever. Alan smiled at the thought. Trill had stayed in touch over the years, sending messages about her studies and career. She had chosen to specialize in human relations, inspired by her early experiences with Buddy. The landing area was at the edge of the city, a large open space where ships could safely arrive from space. A crowd had gathered, reporters, government, officials, and regular people curious to see the Draxian tourists. Many had brought their pets, a gesture of welcome that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Alan stood with Susan and other officials on a raised platform. Buddy sat at his side wearing a special vest for the occasion. The dog was calm despite the noise and excitement, used to being part of important events by now. The Draxian ship appeared in the sky, smaller than the war vessels from 5 years ago. It was sleek and silver, built for comfort rather than battle. It landed smoothly in the center of the field and a door opened in its side. Trill was the first to step out. She wore the blue uniform of the Draxian Space Service, with medals showing her rank. She was taller than Alan remembered, her scales a deeper green with gold patterns that showed her adult status. Behind her came 20 Draxians of different ages. They looked nervous but excited, their eyes wide as they took in the Earth landscape and the crowd of humans. Some stepped back when they saw the dogs and cats in the crowd, but none showed the terror that Commander Zarthul had displayed. Years ago, Trill walked forward and stopped in front of Alan. She bowed in the Draxian way, then smiled, something she had learned from humans. "Colonel Wright," she said, "it is good to see you again, and Buddy too." Alan returned the bow. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Trill. We're honored to have you and your group as our first Draxian tourists." Trill knelt down in front of Buddy. The dog wagged his tail, remembering her even after all these years. She gently stroked his head, no sign of fear in her movements. "The first friend I ever made from another world," she said softly. Then she stood and turned to the crowd. "My fellow Draxians, welcome to Earth, the home of our friends." The tourists came forward one by one to meet Alan and the other officials. Some were brave enough to pet Buddy or the other animals present. One older Draxian, his scales faded with age, approached with special care. "I never thought I would see this day," he said in careful English. "When I was young, we were taught that mammals were monsters from old stories. Now my grandchildren play with pictures of Earth animals and ask for pets of their own." He looked at Buddy with a mix of fear and wonder. "Life is strange, isn't it?" "Very strange," Alan agreed. "But in good ways sometimes." The welcome ceremony continued with speeches and gifts. The Draxians presented Earth with a beautiful star, map showing safe travel routes through their part of the galaxy. Humans gave the Draxians a collection of children's books about animals, specially made for young Draxians learning to overcome their ancient fears. Later that day, Alan took Trill on a walk through a nearby park. Buddy came too, trotting beside them with his leash loose. Other people in the park watched with interest as the Draxian officer walked calmly next to the dog that had once terrified her entire species. "Your message said you have news," Alan said as they walked. "Something big that you wanted to tell me in person." Trill nodded. "The Imperial Council has made a decision. They are changing our oldest law, the one about mammals being dangerous and to be avoided at all costs." "Yes. Now it says that while caution is wise, friendship between species is wiser." Trill looked up at the blue Earth sky. "And there's more. The Council wants to open Earth. Animals parks on some Draxian worlds, safe places where our people can learn about your animals. They're calling them Buddy Parks." Alan laughed. "Buddy Parks?" He would be embarrassed if he understood. "He deserves the honor," Trill said seriously. "Without him, who knows what might have happened? Our peoples might be at war. Instead, we're friends, partners in exploring the galaxy." They stopped by a small lake where ducks were swimming. Buddy watched them with interest but stayed by Alan's side. "5 years ago," Alan said, "when the Draxians first came to Earth, Commander Zarthul threatened to unleash the beast. He meant some terrible weapon. Instead, we unleashed friendship. It turned out to be more powerful." Trill smiled in her Draxian way. "The universe is full of different life forms. Some look scary to others, But maybe it's possible for all of us to learn to see beyond the fear, to find the good in each other. She reached down and patted Buddy's head, even when that good has fur.